How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to discuss some of the things I noticed after watching the first week of Stage 4. I've made a couple of these before, so if you've watched either of those, then it's basically going to be the same kind of format. I plan to go over what I noticed in terms of the meta, maybe a little bit about specific teams and some players as well. Alrighty, with introductions out of the way, let's get started. So beginning with the meta, it was honestly kind of all over the place due to the roll lock being implemented this stage, and as expected, there was a fair amount of bunker and dive being played in the first week. But it goes way beyond that. In the bunker comps, we saw Mei being used a fair amount, and it honestly makes a lot of sense as to why, if I'm going to be completely honest. If the other team is running Orisa Hog, then the wall can be used to block the Holt Hook combo. This is especially good for the moments when your Orisa's Fortify is on cooldown still. And according to the pros, Mei is a hero with a very high skill gap, so whoever is the best with her will drastically help their team's chances of winning games. And one other thing, can we all just celebrate the fact that Mei is being used for a purpose that isn't stalling in the Overwatch League? Yes, I know that teams have used Mei for legit purposes this year in the past, but she was never a consistent pick. But as of right now, she's a viable pick in the Overwatch League. It took nearly 2 seasons, but we finally have a meta where Mei is useful. If you told me earlier this year or in 2018 that Mei would become meta, then I would have called you insane. But here we are now. Some of the best players in the world are using her, and I'm all for it, to be honest. Watching underutilized heroes is very refreshing. Speaking of underutilized heroes, let's talk about Reaper. If you want to talk about a surprising hero pick, then this is who we have to discuss. The Mei pick actually isn't all that surprising since teams and contenders have shown she's viable in the past, plus Mei, as I said before, is really good for blocking the Holt Hook combo and things like Diva Bomb or Baptiste Amplification Matrix. Reaper, on the other hand, was a bit of a surprise pick for me. Reaper, like with Mei, has never really had a place in any of the Overwatch League metas. We'd see teams occasionally break him out here and there in the past, but not very often. But now, it would seem that multiple teams are opting to use him on Control and 2CP maps, and while some teams failed to find a lot of success with it, there were also teams who were winning maps with him. Teams such as the Justice, Defiant, and Valiant had some heroic moments on Reaper, and this is honestly so awesome in my opinion. Reaper was never really all that useful in the league up until now. Seeing him have a higher pick rate is something I'm all for. Reaper has always kind of been a hero that people say is not useful since there's so many counters to him, and he can easily get bodied by someone that has range like Widow or McCree. But for some reason, none of that seemed to matter in the first week of Stage 4. Reaper was actually being ran with some consistency, and the fact that some teams actually did well with him makes it even better. There was actually a handful of pop-off moments with Reaper this week. Some people even managed to find kills with Death Blossom, surprisingly. That tells me that maybe Reaper finally has a place in the Overwatch League meta. I don't want to assume that he'll definitely be sticking around just because teams may only be using him until they get more accustomed to the roll lock, but the fact that a lot of teams were playing him last week is a good sign. If Reaper can stay relevant for at least a majority of the stage, then that would be great. Again, it's very refreshing to see underutilized heroes such as Mei and Reaper being played. In general though, it's been a pleasure to watch a variety of DPS heroes get used again. We've pretty much seen a little bit of everything. There's been Double Sniper, Tracer, Sombra, Genji, and many others I didn't mention. And while I'm on the topic of Genji, can we talk about how awesome it is to see guys like Haxel and Prophet play him again? But one thing I noticed about the way teams used Genji was the fact that if there was a Mercy on the field, she was usually pocketing him. It could just be me, but I personally felt like the Mercy was sticking somewhat close to him in most situations, and it makes sense for the moments when you want to damage boost the blade for sure. That's nothing new. But in general, I felt like the Mercy was close to her Genji usually, Dragon Blade or not. Okay. One more thing that I wanted to bring up regarding the meta has to do with Brigitta. I find it funny how I thought she would probably die out once GOATS was over since her healing isn't all that good, but oh man was I wrong there. Even in 2-2-2, teams still use Brigitta from time to time. Now obviously, she is not nearly as powerful as she is in a 3 support composition, but teams are still finding ways to make her be of use. Sure, her healing output isn't as good as a lot of the other healers in the game, but she's a great counter to dive. One shield bash is all it takes to stop a Winston, Wrecking Ball, Diva, Tracer, Sombra, Genji, or Doomfist in their tracks. She can also peel for the other support on your team, and her Armor Pack burst healing is a really effective way to keep her team up against Reaper, who is capable of big damage at close ranges. It's also really cool that both main supports and flex supports are picking her up and adding her into their hero pools. Okay, those are some of the big things I noticed with heroes and composition selections, so if I missed out on any major details, then make sure to let me know down in the comment section. But anyway, let's move on to a few of the teams and players that caught my eye and how they performed. Let's start with the Vancouver Titans. I personally was very impressed with what I saw from them. I was expecting them to maybe start off the stage a little slow, but they haven't missed a beat. Bumper has gotten the job done on Orisa, and Haxel's Genji is still godly. But the big takeaway from the Vancouver roster right now is obviously Hureg. I always used to think of him as a backup player at best who would forever live in the shadow of Birdring, but after seriously grinding during the time he spent on the bench this year, that is something I can no longer say. Apparently Hureg has been crazy dominant in scrims, and now he seems to have cashed in those scrim bucks. Hureg appears to have gone from a scrim god to a stage god. His DPS was unreal last week. His Widowmaker in particular was terrific. But to be honest, I think Hureg's success goes beyond his improvement. In general, it's always kind of felt like Hureg was the type of player to play around his team rather than be the hard carry. And on London, they often depended on their DPS to come up with big kills, so Hureg wasn't quite as effective. But now that he's playing in a system that suits his playstyle better, the man looks like a god. Team number 2 I wanted to bring up is the London Spitfire. It shouldn't come as much of a surprise to see them popping off since they were so good at Bunker Double Sniper last year and all, but Gesture's Orisa is still looking insane, and his coordination with Prophet when he uses Dragon Strike is still top notch as it was before. I know they didn't really beat anybody impressive last week, but that still doesn't change the fact that we saw some flashbacks to last year, which if you're a London fan is a really good sign. Another team that's caught my attention is the Paris Eternal. It would seem that DPS and Orisa Hog are just what they needed to potentially mount a turnaround right before it was too late. Soon and Shadowburn have been unleashed, and they are living up to the hype as a scary DPS duo. Their double sniper has been ridiculously strong. I've liked Shadowburn's Mei as well. Let's not forget about LH Cloudy and Finzi either. Their hooks were on the money in both of their matches. Finzi in particular really impressed me. I always thought that he was average at best, but his Roadhog was something else. He was honestly kind of carrying whenever Soon and Shadowburn weren't popping off. Overall, I was happy with what I saw from Paris. They convincingly beat the Outlaws and nearly pulled off a reverse sweep against the Valiant. But the real test for the Eternal is whether or not they can keep up this level of play for more than 2 weeks. We've seen this story before. How many times have Paris come out of the gate strong to start a stage, then limp to the finish by the time it's over? Hopefully they can keep up this level of play from here on out. And the final team I wanted to bring up in today's video is the LA Gladiators. First off, getting a statement victory over the NYXL and losing convincingly to the Outlaws in the same week is a little concerning in terms of consistency. I don't really understand how you beat a top tier team and lose to a mid tier one in the same week. But that's not the main reason I wanted to bring them up today. It's more that their creativity and DPS has been eye-catching. The coaching staff has decided to fully utilize Hydration's deep hero pool by running him on main tank on control maps. He's only really played Wrecking Ball so far, but we know he could play Orisa as well, so maybe he plays some of her in the future too. And how about that Symmetra Bastion comp used against the Outlaws during their point B attack on Hanamura? Even though they still have some issues to work out, those not so traditional strategies have been an absolute blast to watch. I've also liked how nice the DPS duo of Surefour and Decay have looked. Those boys have been making some big plays for their team. Decay's Widow and Genji have been on point, and Surefour's Hanzo is unsurprisingly really scary. The reason I say that is because I've seen Surefour play some Hanzo quite a bit on stream as of late. The Gladiators could very well end up having one of the strongest double sniper comps in the league if Surefour and Decay can keep it up. Oh, and as a quick bonus thing, even though it was only for a map, it was great to see Gagery return to the stage. It's always satisfying to see her contribute to a win, and that's exactly what she did on Junkertown. And I have to say that her Roadhog looked pretty good. Her and Gamsu were on the same page with those hook combos. I don't want to assume anything just yet because one map is kind of a small sample size to go off of, but perhaps the Dragons decide to involve Gagery in their game plan moving forward a bit more since she looked so good yesterday. Now Envy hasn't been bad on Hog either, and he most definitely is the better D.Va player, but you never know. Maybe Gagery will be the Junkertown specialist, or she'll play more when Shanghai just wants to play a lot of bunker in general. I'm pretty excited to see what the Dragons plan to do moving forward. And with that being said, that pretty much sums up everything I noticed after the first week of Stage 4. Things have been crazy chaotic with the variety of heroes and compositions we've seen, and it kind of feels like a brand new game. Things are going to be very interesting, and don't forget that many teams will be looking to seal their spot in the overall playoffs or playing tournament too. There's so much to look forward to this stage, and I could not be more excited to watch more of the Overwatch League this week. Welp, that's it guys. If you enjoyed this content, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, thank you all so much for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.